Uh, the speaker for the today's session is Mr. Bharat, Senior Partner at Anand and Anand, and the topic for the today's session is IPR and General Legal. Over to you, sir. You can
Thank
share
you,
your
Archana.
screen. Yes, sir.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Archana, and thanks for everyone at HTIC, especially my friend Muthu, who helped us all come together here. As I'm trying to bring on the slides, a very good afternoon on a Tuesday evening. I wonder if Archana, is my screen now visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We could able to see your screen. Yes, that's perfect.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So before I start the session this evening, I would first congratulate both IIT, HTIC, and the Ministry of Biotechnology to come together to provide such a wonderful platform for all of you to cohabitate and also apply your wonderful innovative minds to come out with solutions, innovations, inventions. In your world, possibly these might be interchangeably used, but in our world of legal intellectual property right laws, not each of the words might be interchangeable. We will get to know about these in a short while, but I will try and take you through the next 1 hour to ram up as many slides as possible. I've possibly got about 80, 85 slides, but we will try and see how many we can cover. And if we spill over, I would possibly ask the organizers permission for extending it by a few minutes. So we will touch upon on a very high level on intellectual property and some legal aspects. We will have a specific patent and a copyrights focus and a design focus as well. What help is of the startup certification and general legal contracts as well. Looking at intellectual property generally, if you split the term, it's nothing but a property created by the intellect. All of us have properties. You have our own houses or apartments or lands. You have a bike or a car or a cycle. All of these are properties, but those are all tangible ones. Those which are intangible, created by the intellect, becomes an intangible intellectual property. And it can be a variety of them, right? And identification of these properties is very easy. Some of us who may not understand each of these topics might be using them interchangeably, but my effort would be to try and tell you that each of them are different buckets of intellectual property, and each of them are governed by different laws, statutes, and modes of protection as well. So the first one is nothing but brands. Whatever I'm using on the right side, green is what you might know, and the left side is what lawyers or intellectual property attorneys like me would be referring to. So brands are nothing but trademarks, inventions, which not necessarily always be innovations. Not all innovations are inventions, but all inventions are innovations. We'll come to that in a short bit. Are patents. Aesthetics of the product, not purely functional, but purely how the looks of the eye are, how it appeals to the eye, are industrial designs. These are different from the patents or the functionality of the product. So how the product looks is different from how the product functions. The design might have a functional element incidentally, but it's quite different from the functional aspect. Copyright resides in a variety of subject matters. They might be in software, they might be in music, they can be in art, literature. We will come to that in a short bit. What may not be relevant directly to you is geographical indications. These are like where a particular product is sourced from. Like a cheese comes from, say, a particular place in France, or a type of whiskey comes from Scotland, so on and so forth. Trade secrets and confidential information, they go hand in hand, and they are extremely, extremely important for you. More so, the last line I've written is data. Data protection, I don't have a separate slide on it, but it's absolutely critical for those who have large customer bases. You are seeking data from the client, what kind of protection you need to take care of on confidential information, their confidential information, and your confidential information as well. So we will move on to each of these subject matters in separate slides. What does a brand do? A brand is nothing but if you go to a crowded supermarket, say in the morning you are in a Spencer, or you are in a Big Bazaar, or you are in some hypermart, it helps you identify what brand or what particular product from a particular source you want. So right from morning, you wake up and start brushing your teeth, or get into a car and have options of whether you want to take a fast track or an Uber. Fast track or an Uber is not a product, but it's a service. All it's right now, fast track has been converted into a app, but they don't sell cars. They are only providing you service of connecting you with a car driver and a car for a taxi service. So that is also a brand. The mobile phones are also, the connections are also brand. These are all service marks. Service marks are also brands, so they are also called trademarks. And then there are other brands such as your sports, like Arsenal Club or Manchester United or Chennai Super Kings. They don't sell products except t-shirts and memorabilia, but they are also a super valuable brand. They are already, Chennai Super Kings, I'm told, is some few thousand crores already. And then there might be products and services under the same brand, like you sell a car and service the car, or you sell a product and you have service of that product. And you have two big brands coming together, like Tata AIG is selling insurance for you, or Maruti and Suzuki come together to sell cars for you and service the cars also. So they sell a product and service the product also. And then comes government-owned brands. Government can also own brand public sector undertakings like Avin, which is selling doodh or milk every day in the morning. And then you have certification marks, which are not actually brands, but they are also trademarks, in the sense that unless and until you comply with certain specifications, you cannot use these certification marks. So someone certifies that these are up to the mark. In fact, the wireless fidelity is also a certification mark, which most of us know as Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is not only a technology co-owned by 30 different companies, but it is also a certification mark. So sometimes products from far, all of you can guess that it's Coca-Cola bottle, which I'm showing you there, but you can't read Coca-Cola, but it's because over a period of time, you've seen the shape, and that's a shape mark. The shape itself of the product becomes a brand at some point of time. And then comes music marks and smell marks. These are lesser known ones, but even without seeing or reading, if you listen to a jingle or a song or a music and you know where the source is, then that's also a trademark in itself. And smell marks are also on the anvil, but it's very rare. Here is an example of a tennis ball smelling of fresh cut grass, probably for players who play it on hard court and not, grass court, to remind them of grass court tennis. So brand names can be word mark, or it can be a label on your pen top, or it can be interior of the entire store, how the entire store looks. It's also a brand which can be protected. So uniformly maintained store format is also becoming a source indicator. So I'm going to run through this slide because we are running against a tight timeline. When you are early on as a startup, all of us think that, oh, I'm going to be lazy when it comes to brands. I have done all the invention. I don't want to invest much of time on brands. I'm going to use something which is very easy to remember. But I've created this scale of distinctiveness. and it's reversely proportionate to how we can protect it in the market. The more generic a brand is, it's easy for a third party to copy. It's easy for your marketing and advertising team to sell it, but it's very, very difficult to protect it, because if there is a third party who copies your brand, you will not be able to stop them because they will say it's so generic. So it's better to start somewhere in a suggestive brand or an arbitrary brand, because suggestive is a drop of a sunflower oil is a suggesting sun drop. Arbitrary brands like Apple for computers or Stag for umbrellas, they are known words, but they don't mean anything for that particular product they are covering. And last but not the least are invented words like Kodak, which doesn't mean anything in any language. Like Samsung, it means nothing in any of the 24 Indian languages, but it means it's a rising sun. Some of the first 2-3 rows of HTIC examples I took have been given here. So it can be, as I'm showing you the mouse, it can be a device, it can be the word, it can just be the device per se, it can be device and word per se, and so on and so forth. But it's important that you protect brands for reasons I will show you later as well. Patents, I note some of you have already filed, some of you have already exploited them, some of you are licensing, but for those who are still early stage in the innovative process, it's better to know what a patent is. A patent is absolutely novel invention which is not existing in any part of the world. It is not just for new to or novel to the Indian territory. When you apply for a grant of a patent, you apply for a particular territory. But when you apply, the search done to ensure that it is novel is done across the world. So the novelty part, that it is new and non-existing, should be there across the world. So even if you apply only in India, the Indian Patent Office will search for prior art or prior existing that product or process, not confined to India, but they will go across all jurisdictions as available online. So the three important aspects are novelty, utility, and non-obviousness, which means that it should have an inventive step, it should not have been existing before, and it should have an industrial and a commercial application as well. So these are very, very basic. We can have a day-long seminar on this slide only, but I'm not laboring on that because we are touching on a very high note to connect later if need be. Something which is important, which all of you need to know, is that if you are in the process of innovation and there will be many iterations of your process in which you are coming on to the final product, there might be a thought in your mind as to when do I apply for a patent? Do I have to apply only when the final product is ready, or even when I have thought about an idea and then I'm going to file it? There is some wonderful method by which you can instantly block the patent by filing something called the provisional application. Provisional means that your final invention or product or process is not ready, but you've got a fairly large idea as to what it is going to be. So you can conduct a search, find out the availability, immediately file a provisional application. It's something like a make-stop arrangement where you put together hurriedly your thought and bungle in an application called provisional application. You need not file drawings or detailed claim statements. All you need to do is put in a claim within the patent office. They give you 12 months period to file for you to develop the product and then come back with the final specification, or what we call it as the absolute final application. So complete specification can be filed after 12 months. So provisional means when your work is in progress, your invention is in progress, you need not wait for the final product to be ready. You can go ahead and file the patent application and call it as a patent pending application. So here is a very detailed chart. One of your colleagues had requested that we consider this as part of the presentation. From filing to grant, it takes anywhere between 2.5 3 years traditionally, but in the modern, what I call it as a super highway, if you are a startup and registered with the Startup India program, or an SME or an individual, you can have some expedited process. There have been some phenomenal stories from the Indian Patent Office, which is now one of the fastest in the world, where from date of filing till grant, it's been a mere 9-10 months, which is much faster than the American or the EU or the Australian Patent Office. So once you file an application, it gets published instantly. But when you are filing a provisional patent application, they actually give you 12 months from filing till publication, so that only after you file the complete specification will it get published. So it will still be kept as a secret till you file the complete specification. And then there is an important step of request for examination, without which it won't be examined. Examined means that the patent office will go through all past records to see if there is already a similar invention already in place. I said similar invention, not necessarily similar patent. So it can be a research paper in a university published and available in public domain, can also be a prior art which can kill your patentability of the invention. So a response has to be submitted, and then if there is further objections, they ask for they release a further examination report, and then it eventually gets granted. But there is a chance of a pre-grant opposition or a post-grant opposition. A third party can come and object either here or here, before or after the grant. If there is a refusal, then we have to go to the Intellectual Property Appeal Board, which is there in Chennai, and then the appeals will take its own due course. So I'm not going into deep diving of the entire, I just wanted to give you a very high level perspective. So there is important provisional application which you can file, and the prosecution chart which you should broadly know of. Very quickly, a randomly taken example. I saw very quickly that there is a bunch of applications filed by one of your members, Cornerstone, in patent has been granted in India, and they have applications filed in 3 other jurisdictions of Europe, US, and China, which I believe are yet to be granted. Moving on to the next story or next bucket is actually the designs. As I said, designs are not the functional aspect. The patents covers the functionality. Designs may incidentally have functional aspects, but it's purely how it looks. It's how it appeals to the eye or judged by the eye. It can be a shape or a 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional. It can be ornamental or even a pattern of, say, for example, the golf ball I'm talking about. So if you are coming out with some a new type of a bandage to wrap a open skin or an open wound, then the pattern of that bandage could possibly also be registered and protected as a design, as long as it does not purely have functional aspects. So what all can be design protected? So for example, I'm just giving you a random example here. I'm assuming we are all inside a dentist clinic, and then there is this ergonomic chair. The chair might have a technology of how it goes back and forth, but that is covered by patent. But the looks of this chair would be protected by design. Similarly, the overhead light, how it functions will be protected by patent, but how it looks will be protected by a design. I'm going to run through copyright, but what largely might be important for you is the software part of it and also the music part of it. Why I say that is also the database part of it. Software, because I see most of you are into, or some of you are into augmented reality, or which all covers with software for your devices as well, and databases of your own clients, which are all broadly classified under the heading of copyright. We will talk about on a different day, not today, about Data Protection Act, but it's absolutely important that you get your the clients and the target person's consent on what you want to do with the data, whether you want to sell the data or it's only for analytical purposes. But apart from that, copyright is the widest form. Most of you might think it's only for books, but it's for drama, music, sculpture, photography, architecture, films. Sound recording is the music, and photographs and painting, etc. Again, another quick jump on to GI, or geographical indication. It's a community right, possibly not applicable to or relevant directly to any of you here. But for example, the eggs which come from Namakkal, or saris which come from Kanjivaram, the coffee which comes from Coorg, or turmeric which comes from Erode. These are all from Tamil Nadu, but in India, we've got 300 plus geographical indications. The products which are so attributable to the location because of either the manufacture of goods there or the particular soil or water which is used from there. So the persons within that community, within that particular geographical location, are the only ones who can use that geographical indication. And the first GI which we took to the courts was nothing but our own Tirupati Laddu case, where a Chennai-based sweet shop was selling laddus and calling it Tirupati Laddu, and we had to take them to the court, and they agreed to change it to just called Prasadam Laddu. I talked about the importance of confidential information and trade secrets. Unlike trademarks, patents, design, copyright, and geographical indication, all the four which we just saw in the previous slides, they are all covered by some statute, as in a written law, which the government has written for all of us. However, confidential information and trade secrets, unfortunately, in India, does not have a statute, which means that you cannot go to a judge and say, look at this provision, this is what the provision talks about. So in India, it is protected under law of equity, which means that unwritten law, therefore, it has to be bound only by agreements, what two parties agree. So that's why we have non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, or the confidential information and trade secret agreements, specifically tying not only employees, but also potential buyer, potential supplier, outsourced person, any person you might come for hire. So especially when you are a startup, you can't afford an employee, and you will end up having some person for plug and play. So they might be there for 3 months, 6 months, 1 year without being on record. They might be on contract. That contract is what needs to ensure that you cover confidential information and trade secret provisions there, to ensure no matter what you are disclosing to them is not disclosed to a third party, especially your competitors or any person who might take advantage of it. So it's absolutely important. The good old example is how Coke for over 130 years has retained its syrup as a secret. Only about 10 or 12 of them in the entire company over 130 years know how it has been made. Other forms of IP assets which I'm going to run through is hot news. For example, if Star Sports or 10 Sports or ESPN buys live broadcast from BCCI for say $3 billion, then they are the only ones who can show it live. And that's why if you see Doordarshan says 15 minutes delay, 15 minutes of delayed broadcast, that's because they resell the slots for advertisements and then how they recoup the money they paid BCCI. So anyone who's selling the live scores is violating the hot news rights of the company which has bought the broadcast rights. So that is a new form of an IP asset, which is called hot news, which doesn't have a statute, but it's basically a doctrine, and it's quite tradable as well. Old forms of intellectual property find new form of usage. Why I say this is traditionally we used to consume music in a LP record, and then came tapes, and then came floppy disk, and then came CD-ROM, and then came MP3. Now it's only online streaming. So you can imagine old songs which are still copyright worthy and protection can be finding new revenue streams by letting them out as caller tunes and so on and so forth. So basically, I keep telling everyone, if you have a new business or a new product or a new process, ensure that you find protection under the patent or copyright. If you have a new shape, protect it as a new design or a shape mark. If you have a new brand, protect it as a trademark or a logo also as a trademark. Customer list and product literature go in as confidential information and copyright. And if you are setting up websites, that's a completely day-long program again, how domain names need to be protected, because you might be registered as hticiiitm.org. The question is, if someone else goes and registers hticiiitm.in or .co.in or .au or .cn, for say .cn is China, and then so you need to go ahead and register as many extensions or top level domain names as possible. So if you're thinking about a new business or a product, these are the many buckets of intellectual property you should be looking at and protecting yourself. The idea is to protect. You have anything which is new, ensure that you find a bucket to protect it. So we keep saying that a good idea is a terrible thing to waste. Don't waste them. Ensure you are protecting them. Why do we protect them is a most important question. Some of you might be defensive, saying that, hey, I don't want a third person to come and say I have violated the right, therefore I have to protect my own rights. Intellectual property registration is nothing but the compound wall around your house. If you are having a house or an apartment, why do we build that compound wall? First, the compound wall is an indicator as to how far your rights are. What you own is the indication of how far you own it. So it can be a fence or it can be a compound wall. That's why you need to build that barricade for you not to go out or others not to come in. So it can be a defensive or an offensive one. Large corporations use it to offensive advantage, and even some squatters, as they say, that non-performing or non-using patent trolls also sit on patents and start seeking for licenses. We'll come to that a little bit later. But monetization is by far the best revenue, mostly known in telecom sector. I'll tell you why later, because that's where a lot of cross licensing and patent pooling happens. So as I said, you build your own boundary wall. I have given you the example of a China wall. If you have your own assets on the green side, protect them, mark your own boundaries so that others know what wall not to cross. If you stumble upon others' ideas, please do not copy them. Keep searching them always to see if you are by chance unknowingly violating third parties' rights. So you have to improve or modify upon their existing patents or protected intellectual property. So you might be thinking on your own sunny day that you are a unicorn with a horn which you have, but you might, when you search, stumble upon some other party saying that they own the horn rights to the horn, and they might just pluck you off it. So this cartoon actually gives you a very rough estimate of what might happen, that until you stumble upon a third party who is ahead of us in the race, you might be thinking that you are the unicorn, which may not be the reality. So when you have to enforce your rights, when I say enforce, if someone violates, for example, if you buy a acre of a land somewhere outside outskirts of the city and you forget about buying that land, someone comes and encroaches on the land, and that's precisely what infringement of IP is all about, where you create an IP asset, whether it's a brand or a patent or a design or a copyright. Someone else comes in, infringes on it, or comes in, squats on it, or comes in, violates or trespasses on it. If you don't throw that trespasser outside, they are going to take advantage of you being inactive. So you either you have one of the 5 options we put in here. You can put out a caution notice telling the world as to what your rights are, or if you know a particular misuser, you will have to address a specific legal notice. If 1 and 2 options do not fail, if they do fail, in Sanskrit we have a saying which says Sama Dana Beda Danda, means soft touch and then go to the hard touch. If Sama and Dana doesn't work, then you go to Beda and Danda, which means that you go to the court or you go to the police and take actions. You can have also customs recordal, whereby you go to customs and record your trademark or designs. They will stop it at the customs borders. So it happens very effectively in Hong Kong and US and UK, where the border police or the customs stop spurious products. India is also picking up quite well on customs recordal as well. Or you can give out the infringer a license to use your own IP and get into a settlement where the infringer can pay you a royalty. So I was just telling you, it can be a soft touch where you can send a poster like legal notice, or you take them to the court and fight them out really hard. But important part is, please do not turn your back on time, which means if you know of someone who is violating your right, it's absolutely important that you should immediately take action against them. If you delay, then the courts will not help you at all, because there is a concept of delay and acquiescence, where the court says you have let that party believe that you are okay with their copying. So it's called acquiescing to their violation, as though you've given them a consent or a license. Therefore, you will definitely succumb in your action against them. So don't sleep. You need to act immediately after knowing about the violation. As I talked about, an important part of monetization, you need to see what are the kind of IP brand valuation or patent deals which happen. For example, Unilever recently, sometime in 2008 December, bought over Horlicks for over $3.8 billion. That was not only the brand, but also the market share and the trading channels and everything. But if you want to monetize on the left side, once you have a patent or a design or a trademark, you have one of the many options of either selling it outright, which we call it the assignment, or you can get into a licensing or a tech transfer deal. Patent pool, as I was talking about, is most popular in the telecom sector, because if you have a common platform and you have multiple players working on the same platform, most of the telecom companies work into a patent pool system so that they don't violate each other, but at the same time it helps in growth of the technology in that particular subject matter. The common route for food industry and other hospitality industry is franchising. May not be directly applicable to a tech center like yours. Capital raising and security is absolutely critical, where modern companies have started using intellectual property as though it's a normal asset. So you can pledge it, you can keep it as a security for credit, or you can raise capital based on the tech which you have or intellectual property you have created. They said IP protection is territorial. The vast number of countries around the world. You should know which market is absolutely critical for you. If you are sitting in Chennai, India, or anywhere else in the part of the world, the first to file should be the home country. Home country of the inventors. I would presume that invariably it should be everyone sitting in IIT Chennai here. So you would file it in India and possibly down the road at the Guindy Patent Office, and then take it to the rest of the world. There is a concept of patent cooperation treaty, PCT route, but I can talk about that on a later day for want of time. The process generally is, first, before you think of filing any intellectual property, is to ensure that it is available for use. When I say available for use, you need to search to see if anyone ahead of you has used or applied for or registered a similar intellectual property. Once you have ascertained that the IP is free for you to operate in that space, because imagine if you are in an R&D program and you are investing time, efforts, money, grants from IIT or grants from a third-party corporation, and after 6 months or 10 months of you researching, if you stumble upon or someone says, hey, this has been done and dusted, someone is sitting on a patent already, all your 10 months worth of research has gone bad. Imagine how punched you will be in your belly when someone does that to you. So it's better when you start venturing out on a new product or a process, conduct that search first, even before you invest your time or efforts in R&D. And then comes filing. Once you file it, the patent office or design office or trademark office would examine and then publish it. That's called the advertisement or the publication stage, inviting third parties to come and oppose. If no one opposes, then there is a grant of registration, and then it has to be periodically renewed. If it's a trademark, it's renewed once in 10 years. Patent, you have to file your annuities every year for the 20 years of its being there. And designs, it's valid for 15 years, and you need to renew it every 5 years. Moving on, it's important, after you understand what intellectual property is, go back to your desk and possibly write down, and that's possibly why our colleagues at HTIC had suggested that we have a general workshop and then followed by a mentoring program, is to know what IPs do you have. Look around your own desk, look around your own company or what you have before you want to do any of the freedom to operate search or registration process. This helps you in a variety of things. Once you do the IP due diligence or audit, you need to have a valuation. I ask myself and tell everyone, as a startup or an R&D or a mid-level company, the investors come in and start investing money into the company for only one or two reasons. One, they want to participate in the growth of the company so that their investment grows. But the valuation which they look at is purely on the intellectual property, because the proposition is obviously the future possibility of market salability, scalability, and growth. But the valuation today is purely not on how big your factory is, or how big your how many computers you have, or what assets you have, but it's purely based on the value proposition of the technology or the intellectual property. So we've already seen the so sorry. I'm going to rush through the last few slides because we are already at 15 minutes to closure. So patent focus, as I said earlier, you first need to search, you need to analyze, assess before you launch your R&D program or launch your products in the market. Because if two persons come out with the same kind of a subject matter, it might be a independent research or a stumbling, but in our patent field or IP field, we call it as an infringement. So the courts might come down heavily on us and may ask us to shut down our operations and the business as well. So when do you want to search and what do you search? The search has to be done for prior arts. The prior arts, as I said earlier, is not confined to India, but it's on a global scale. The search will be done of scientific literature, websites, news articles, common parlance. It can be library records. It can be anything under the sky. Basically, the novelty aspect, which I talked about in the previous slide, is a result of a confirmation that there is no prior art. So the prior art can be anything under the sky. It can be anywhere hidden. It can be known, unknown, as long as it is published and is in the public domain already. So very quickly, I'm just giving you an example of how prior arts defeated applications of patents. So there was a US patent application for a methodology or a technology to bring up a sunken ship. So the application was filed saying that they will put in 27 million plastic balls into the ship which is sunken so that the ship will come up. So that's the patent claim which someone actually said that. But it was rejected based on, believe it or not, an Uncle Scrooge cartoon, in which Uncle Scrooge actually puts in the tennis balls and brings up the sunken ship. So even a cartoon character or a cartoon story can act as a prior art to kill you. And the same thing happened to even Apple. The founder of Apple went on to explain a particular feature. It's called the rubber band effect, where you pinch and expand the screen, then leave it, and then it bounces back into its original shape. He explained that effect on a keynote address, but the application for patent of that rubber band effect, unfortunately, was filed after the keynote address. So the keynote address itself killed the application, as the keynote address was the prior art disclosing, publishing the invention as it is. So as I talked about, there is a possibility of taking your India filed application globally. Patent Cooperation Treaty is PCT, where it can take you to 152 countries. But you need to mention to the Indian Patent Office that you want to go through the PCT route, and it has to be filed within 12 months of your mother application, and indicate the list of where all you need to go. And then after you've indicate and give the list of countries, you have about 28 to 31 months to file the national application, which means if you have designated, say, UK, US, and China, within the 12 months, after 28 months, you can choose all three, or you can choose to go with only one. So the 28 to 31 period is to designate and file the national phase applications. So all of these are available online. World Intellectual Property Organization, WIPO, is there to help you with all those, to calculate the time limits and so on and so forth once you file the mother application in India and the subsequent PCT routed international application as well. Moving on, NDAs are absolutely important. You need to obviously spell out what is the subject matter of the trade secret without disclosing it in the document, as to how you are. So whenever you are disclosing an information which is confidential, mark your email, ensure that you are giving it to them in a written format marked as confidential. Or when you are sending it through courier, send it marked as confidential, and maintain an office copy that it was marked confidential. So always have proof that you told the other party that what you are disclosing is confidential. So you give notice on the intellectual property also owned. I'm going to skip the examples of the trade secret cases and move on to quick on copyright. In India, copyright, I'm going to speak only on the software part of it. Source code of the software is protected as a literary work. So if someone were to copy chunks of it, it would be a violation of your copyright in the literary work in the source code. So please ensure that your employment agreements, especially if you have contracted third parties to come and work with you for a specific period of time, to forego or confirm that they have assigned or they have given up all rights on what they have created in favor of you. So you need to have no objection certificate or an assignment deed or employment agreements, one of the above, with all your employees or contractors. I'm going to skip copyright. Term is for 60 years. That's broadly good to know because we don't have much of time. Software piracy is a big problem. A lot of early stage startups do not have the benefit of buying costly software licenses, but they tend to use open source. Open source software have their own advantages and disadvantages. While everyone knows the disadvantages, if you incorporate the open source software, you are bound by the license terms which you never read. So there might be a term in the open source software that whatever you create with the open source software should also be open source. So you might not be able to commercially exploit your software. So you need to take care of it. But if you are using a third-party licensed software, it's absolutely important that you get a absolutely licensed version, or else there might be a crackdown on software piracy. And there are a lot of times when large corporation individual CEOs and office bearers are also arrested. As I said, every slide can take an entire day. We are having only 10 minutes more or 7 minutes more. If you are a SaaS company in healthcare, then you need to work really hard on your license terms. Because if you are a software company and you are software as a service, all you are doing is earning your monies by licensing or renting out your software. which means intellectual property, which means copyright. So you need to take care of which territories persons can use, what is the term for, whether the license can be revoked, how many number of users can they use, so on and so forth. I've already talked about open source. You need to obviously take care, give credit to that particular open source software which you have used. But the last line, as I said, is the non-proprietary obligation. You need to see what are the conditions of that open source software. One of our clients, I need to spend about 30 seconds to 1 minute on this. One of our clients unnecessarily got dragged into a patent litigation in the US. What is the reason? They had used a free to use open source software, which unfortunately was infringing a patent owned by Express Mobile. So Express Mobile here is a US based company. What it did was, it found out that open source software was violating its patent in the US. So it found out who are all the companies using the open source software, because all the companies which are using that particular open source software are also violators of its patents. So if you see the first line, Express Mobile has filed a patent litigation campaign targeting web authors tools. So basically, you need to ensure that you are careful while using open source software, while it is free to use, while it is easier to go ahead and pick up existing solutions to plug in and play. But it also opens you to a lot of exposure of liability, not in India, but other parts of the world also. I've covered this. I'm sorry for the repeat part of it. I'm just going to quickly skip out. If you are a startup, you may need to know that, I mean, probably HTIC already does that for you. It's absolutely critical that you go and register yourself on the Startup India program, because for nothing but that the Indian Patent Office and the Intellectual Property Office gives a lot of concessions in government fee for startups. So I'm just giving you an example of how a certificate looks of a Startup India program. As I told you, government fees for a startup is 1,600 as against 8,000. So you can do the comparison here from 20,000, 4,000, it's like 1/4 or 1/5 of it. And there is substantial lower fees which you need to cough up so that you have more money to go back into R&D rather than give it to the patent or IP office. Of course, it depends on which lawyers you use, because lawyers would also give you a substantial discount to individuals or startups, but not probably in the same ratio as the government does. As I gave you an example, when I told you that there are patents which are granted in a very, very fast manner, I'm giving you an example of a particular product here. Patent was filed in 2016. Request for examination in October 2016. I'm just going to expedite and say the protection was granted in July of 2017, which is technically 1 year and 3 months or 15 months from the date of application, which is absolutely madness when compared to the world backlogs. Indian Patent Office and IP Office has all become digital. No one can say that file kho gaya or I've lost the file, it is found in someone else's drawer and all, because everything is digitized now. I'm going to rapidly conclude this in the next 4 or 5 minutes. You have the option of structuring your company as either a sole proprietorship or a partnership or a corporation. while I would never ever recommend sole proprietorship. So while it is easy, but the liabilities are very, very high, and raising capital, no one will invest in a sole proprietorship. Similarly, in partnership, it's very easy to set up a partnership program, but again, the risk of your personal properties being liable are very high. But therefore, it's not advisable to go into a partnership. LLP is far better. It's less complicated than a company, but it's always better to go in for a company. But LLPs are less risky than a regular partnership, but governed by the LLP Act of 2008. Um, Limited company, private limited company are much better, but 10-15 years, when you have a boom in your sales, you can possibly list it. That's what a public limited company is when you go public with your listing. So I'm going to skip on the super details of private and public limited company and go on to contractual safeguards. When I say contractual safeguards, everything you do in a company, you believe in your own co-founders as your best friends today. When the going is good, everything is good. All your employees are the best employees, all your investors are the best investors, all your clients are the best. But none of you understand that the unwanted lawyer or unwanted agreements would be read up only when you start having a problem. When the co-founders or the promoters start infighting, I mean, there are a lot of mentors around, they will all tell you. When two persons part, only then will you start looking at the agreement. I love the US marriage for that, because they have a prenuptial agreement. A prenuptial agreement is when a person, a man and a lady, or a man and a man in modern times, or lady and lady, any two persons who want to marry draw up a prenuptial agreement so that they agree who owns what or who pays what if the marriage were to fail. And that's precisely why I want each of you to have written, signed, executed agreements between promoters, between co-founders, with each of your employees, with your consultant, with your vendor, with your clients. This is to ensure that you limit your liabilities, because if three co-founders come together, one is great in technology, another is great in sales, another is great in capital raising. If two of them stay back in one parts, you tell me which is more important. Those are the kind of things which I want to be captured in that promoters, co-founders agreement, to ensure that the exiting party does not put the company at a lot of problems, or as a parting gift take away something which is unacceptable. I'm not going to get into taxation laws, because we can bring in a chartered accountant, but that's for a different day. You need to definitely understand that even if you are a 10, 20, 30 employee company, you have many laws to comply with. You need to pay for their provident funds. You need to have a minimum wages. You need to know whether there is a graduate in your employee, then the minimum salary is 20,000, so on and so forth. So better know the labor laws properly, because there are too many laws to comply with. Even a seasoned lawyer would not know all the laws, because there are about 1,600 laws in India. So Maternity Benefit Act, even paternity laws have come in right now, saying that minimum of 6 months paid leave has to be given under the Maternity Benefit Act. I'm just reading that out of the 6 or 7 here. Last but not the least, I'm going to say that record keeping is important. What I mean by record keeping is, if 2 or 3 important stakeholders in the company assemble together for a meeting, a mentor is giving a meeting with the mentee, or an investor is having a meeting with the investee, or a potential investor is having, or a supplier is having a discussion, or a client is having a discussion. After the discussion, please go back into your computer and send off an email saying that, hey, it was a great evening. This is what we discussed. What happens is, not only it is a good record or a challenge to your memory, but also captures exactly what you have discussed. So record keeping, keep minutes of all meetings, whether it is critical or non-critical, because today something which is non-critical might become critical a year later. Write agreements for all your clients, vendors, and employees. Whenever you seek opinion on taxes or intellectual property, or whether the GST is applicable, whether you have to take fire and insurance permits and all that stuff, it's better to seek written opinions and keep them permanently. Ensure that you have records of your taxes paid, so that all of you are techpreneurs. You might not be savvy in taxation, you might not be savvy in all the permits and licenses, but those are the irritant ones which come back to bite us in a big way. So compliance is record keeping, which will save you from all these compliances. So when you don't have the expertise in-house, go outside and take expert opinions, expert assistance for taxation or law or Factory and Wages Act. So don't believe that when the notice comes, we will take care of it. So with that, I can say that from the days when I used to be a long distance or a mid distance runner, I keep saying that business is not a sprint. It is a slow marathon for which you need to be prepared. So I leave this with this caption by saying, why do all the techpreneurs or entrepreneurs run? Is because you will never understand unless you run it. So all of us have our own challenges, but each of our own destination is different. So those who put themselves through the pain, but deep down knows how good it feels. So that's why I say keep running as a entrepreneur, and that's with that I would like to close my 1 hour slot exactly, because we started at 5:07 and it's 6:07. I leave it back to the organizers, and if someone has any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Thank you, sir. It was really an interesting session, sir. So we'll have questions from the participants. So participants can post your questions in the chat box. We have one question from Krishnan Rama. He's asking the cost for filing a patent for a medical equipment manufacturing startup from the provisional to the absolute final patent filing.
Sir, I can tell you our professional fee is off record, but I can only show you the screen of what happens at the government fee rate from filing till grant. Professional fee will depend exactly on how complicated the subject matter is and how much of claim one needs to draft. And Archana, when I am responding, if you can mute yourself, we can avoid echo around.
Yes, sir, it's fine.
So if the gentleman who asked the question and possibly do a screenshot of this would have an answer of the government fee which goes around. But insofar as the professional fee is concerned, it's quite subjective, and he can possibly reach out separately, so that on a after a short discussion we can tell you what the prices are, because it's like saying I have fever, how much will it cost to get it away? That depends on a few tests which have to be done, how much of time one has to invest in. Over to you, Archana.
Thank you, sir. So we have another question from Dr. Bhuneshwar. Um, so his question is, how much time is there for filing individual patents under PCT from the time of filing a preliminary?
Okay, that's a period of 12 months. I'll just go back to that particular slide so that it's easy for uh, him to visualize it.
Sir, can you hear us, sir? Sorry, I think there is a connection issue with Mr. Bharat, sir. We'll wait for a second for him to reconnect. Hello, sir. Can you hear us?
Yes, I'm sorry. There was
Yeah, we have lost you. Yeah, we have lost you in between.
a fluctuation here, and I had to reconnect. I'm so sorry for that.
No issues, sir. Yeah.
I was responding by saying that there is a period of 12 months, and I was trying to share my screen, but from the date of filing the Indian mother application, we have a period of 12 months to take it to the PCT route.
Okay, sir. So the follow-up question from Dr. Bhuneshwar, is it 28 to 30 months from preliminary filing for full spec filing?
I'm just sharing the screen again. So to answer the question, sir, there are two different stages. First stage is the provisional application where you don't have a final invention ready. So you just put together what you have in hand and file it. And then the complete specification, you can file it within a period of 12 months. The provisional application and complete specification, whether it is one or the other, doesn't have an impact on PCT filing. The PCT filing has to be filed within a period of 12 months from whatever you file first, whether it is provisional or complete specification. So for example, if you file today on 21st of July 2020 a provisional application, you have 12 months to file a complete specification. And assuming in another 3 months, say 20th of October, you are already ready with your final spec, then you can file the complete specification in October itself. But your PCT deadline of taking it through the patent cooperative treaty, that 12 months deadline will kick in from 21st July, not 20th of October. So you need to file your PCT application 12 months from earliest filed application, whether it's provisional or complete specification. I hope I was clear on that, sir.
Yeah, thank you. That's the doubt I had, and now I got it clear. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So, at the interest of time, we'll have the last two questions from the chat box. We have one from Rupa. Her question is: if the company is already registered with the incubation cell, can be registered again with the Startup India program?
Answer is absolutely yes, because what you register with incubation cell is only within IIT and HTIC. What you have to go ahead and do a registration in Startup India is run by the Ministry of Commerce. I'm going to share you the link to the Startup India program so that you can go and look at it yourself. All you have to do is go online web search engine and go to Startup India program. Startup India program is a separate program started by DPIIT, which used to be called DPIP before. And your registration there, so I'm going to just blow it up. Is the screen visible? Hello?
No, sir. No, sir. We couldn't see your screen.
Okay. So anyway, Startup India program is a separate program run by the government of India under the Ministry of Commerce. Ministry of Biotechnology is what is aligned with HTIC. They are two different ministries. Startup India program is run by Ministry of Commerce and Trade. So you need to go and register before Startup India under DPIP, or now it is called DPIIT. That's a separate process. So you can do that, but there is some deadlines and criteria which you have to meet. And those criterias I will try to share my screen again. Is my screen visible now?
Yes, sir. We could. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Startup India program, it says here, 7 years from date of you starting for biotech, or 10 years for general from date of registration or incorporation. You have 7 or 10 years from startup, and it has to be either a private limited company or a LLP. Your turnover should not exceed 25 crores, and it should not have been created by splitting up an existing company. And the last but not the least, which each of you will always meet the criteria, is working towards innovation and improvement of product and processes. So to answer the question short, yes, you can separately go and register yourself before Startup India, even if you have separately registered yourself in HTIC. Those two are different.
Thank you, sir. So we'll have this last question from Survankar Datta. He's asking at what stage a startup should hire a legal advisor, and will the legal advisor be willing to advise against equity? And he's also requesting whether you can recommend a contract.
It's basically whenever, I would say, go from day one to a lawyer. It's like asking, I have a baby to deliver, can you deliver it at home or deliver it in a hospital? If we take care of our own human babies the way we take care of our startup, of course, which doctor in which hospital is something by word of mouth. Similarly, which lawyer and what kind of lawyer is also by word of mouth or by experience. But answer is yes, earlier the better, earliest the better. There are a lot of lawyers who help startups right from day zero. Not all all lawyers have expertise in all. Please understand that first. For example, as far as structuring, I might not be the right person, but I might put you onto the right person. It's like going to an orthopedic surgeon and asking them, I have a heart problem, can you help me? He will not do it. He'll possibly put you onto a heart specialist. So since there are 1600 laws, there might be jack of all trade like a doctor down your road who might be giving you a green pill for every kind of an ailment. But those days are gone. Specialists are the order of the day. So equity lawyer might be different, IP lawyer might be different, but generally a person who doesn't have an expertise would put you onto the right person rather than experiment with you and learn the law along you.
Thank you, sir. So, before we wrap up, I would like to make a few announcements here. Um, so, participants requesting you to please fill the feedback form. The feedback link will be posted on the chat box. So, we'll be hosting an Ask Me Anything session on the coming Thursday at 5 p.m. The topic for the session is Ask Me Anything on Pivoting by Shankar V, who's founder of CAMS and director at Axis Investments. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. It was really a great session, and the presentation was very interesting too. We'll be posting the session video on our YouTube channel, sir, for the people who have missed the session today. So, hope it is fine with you. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, all the
Absolutely fine, no
participants.
problem. What I'm planning to do is whenever we're having the mentoring session, I will bring in a patent attorney who is a specialist in the field of biotechnology and the related patent field. So whoever wants to come and have a chat at that time, since I am a commerce student and a litigator, I litigate on patents, but the tech team, tech lawyers will be there with me at the chat session later.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. That will work fine, sir. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all for the participation. Have a good evening.
Thanks to you and Muthu Archana. Thank you. Thanks, Muthu.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Bye.